Hello everybody, this is the ankle routine from the Pain Free by Pete Egoscue book. Before we get into this, I just want to clarify that this routine is about improving ankle function, ankle mobility and ankle strength. It's a very ankle focused routine. Therefore, as per the rules and the principles of posture, if you have ankle pain, this might not be the routine for you. So this is about improving function. It's not about reducing pain necessarily. If you have ankle pain, it likely means that your ankles are overworking and overloading. So by focusing on the ankles a lot with ankle-based exercises, you might actually make your pain worse. So give this a go, but please don't be surprised if this doesn't suit you if your ankles are a pain point for you. I'll just pop this to one side. In terms of equipment, you are going to need a yoga block. You're going to need a chair or something like this. We're going to be using it for 2 different exercises, and you're also going to need a little stretch of wall as well. You may also want to have a couple of cushions to hand, because a couple of cushions to hand is always helpful. So let's begin. We're going to start off, and hopefully I'm in screen here, but forgive me if my head's chopped off. We're going to start off with our arm circles. So I'm not going to walk through golfer's grip right now, but you'll want to put your hands in a golfer's grip position to keep the hands nice and tight, to have the fingers, the palms and the wrists working hard. So really tucking those fingers in, pulling the thumbs back, keeping the wrists nice and rigid. We're standing with our toes, our ankles, our knees and our hips in parallel alignment. So making sure that the toes are not wider than the ankles. You probably want to spin your feet in slightly, and you're going to feel a little bit pigeon-toed when you're in that train track alignment. We're going to pull our shoulder blades back and down behind us without thrusting the chest up. And we're going to lift our arms up to about shoulder height. If you're restricted by pain here, or if you notice that your rib cage lifts, take your hands down a little bit and that will just lessen the demand. We're going to do a minute of circles forwards like this, and then we're going to turn our arms backwards from the shoulder joints, not just from the hand, and then we're going to do a minute of our arms going backwards as well. So off we go. Move myself slightly sideways because I'm touching my tree. So I'm breathing in and out of my nose throughout. I'm relaxing my face, relaxing my belly, keeping the weight even through both of my feet. My head is not pecking forwards and backwards here. My chest is not lifting up and down. My fingers are tight, my thumbs are pulling backwards, my arms are rigid, and the movement is occurring from the shoulder joints, not from the elbows or the wrists. So I don't want to see your elbows bent and the wrists spiraling like a little helicopter. We really want this to be that the arm is rigid and the movement is driving from the shoulder girdle. The reason that we're starting with this exercise in an ankle menu is that we are improving the position of our upper body before we then start moving downstream and working on our hips, our legs and our feet. And that's time. So quick little break there. We're going to do exactly the same thing, but we're going to be moving those arms backwards. And like I said, when we spin the arm backwards, make sure you're turning it from that chest and that you're not just turning your wrist, which is also possible. 1 minute backwards, off we go. And if standing arm circles feel a bit too much, you can do arm circles sitting in your chair if you want to. You can do them in a kneeling position, but that's arguably harder. And you can actually also do them in a sitting floor position as well. Keep breathing. The shoulders need to stay away from the ears. The shoulders need to be behind you. The belly relaxes, you keep the face relaxed, you breathe in and out of your nose, keep those arms rigid. So we kind of want the arms high, but the shoulders low. The head isn't pecking forwards and backwards. The rib cage isn't lifting up and down. We want the shoulders moving more than we want the spine moving, but the spine likes to compensate when we don't have the function in the shoulders. Keep going. You've got 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. So We've improved our upper body position, and now we are going to come to sitting heel raises with a block. So we're going to need our chair. We're going to sit on our chair, and we're going to think about the alignment of our feet again. So toes, ankles, knees, and hips in alignment. The toes are not wider than the ankles, and we've got our yoga block. I'm putting it the medium way around in between my knees, and what's happening is it keeps the kneecaps in alignment with the hip joints. So it depends on the type of yoga block that you have as to which orientation you want it, but you don't want your knees narrower than your hips, and you don't want your knees wider than your hips as well. The ankles stay below the knees, so not too far away, not too close to your body. We're keeping our sit bones grounded, and we're rolling our pelvis forwards so that we close up the front of the hip. So I don't want the pelvis tucking behind you. I want it to be that you kind of crunch down on your finger when you put it in the front of the hip joint there. And once again, we're not lifting the rib cage upwards. So if you struggle with pelvic movement, you might notice that you try and lift your rib cage. Rib cage faces forwards, the pelvis drives forwards. We're keeping our hips in this closed position of flexion. And what we're about to do is get the feet talking to the hips. So palms facing up, upper body relaxes, relaxing the face, breathing in and out of the nose. We are going to do 2 minutes here of moving up onto the balls of our feet, really keeping the big toe joint down on the floor. So as we lift up, we're not lifting the big toe joints up, we're driving our weight into that big toe joint. We're going nice and slowly, and we're trying to get our ankles to go as high as we can, and we're hopefully going to get some cramping happening in the calves and maybe the arches of the feet, to be fair, to work our feet in a range of movement called plantar flexion. 2 minutes here, off we go. So as we do this movement, the movement at the foot or at the feet is slow and steady, both on the upwards movement and the downwards movement. You're trying to get both of your ankles to move at the same speed as each other. So you probably will, and you might notice that you have a more functional ankle that can move a little bit further. And what I want you to try and do is work towards your less functional ankle. So if you notice that your right ankle can move more, I'd rather you pare back a little bit on that movement of the right foot, just so that the left one is doing the same as best you can with that right hand side. You might feel crampy, you might feel quite jerky and quite wobbly as you come down, and that's a really nice sign. You're squeezing that block with your knees, and that's helping to wake up your inner thighs, and you're really keeping your pelvis rolling forwards here, and you're keeping that pelvis and the upper body completely still. So as you lift up your feet, you might notice that you're tempted to rock the pelvis backwards and forwards, and we don't want that because that's you running out of the hip movement. Pelvis drives forward, upper body stays engaged. This is about trying to keep those hips like locked on as the ankles move up and down in plantar flexion. Got just over 30 seconds left here. Keep breathing in and out of the nose, expanding that lower rib cage. The rib cage doesn't lift up. Really trying to keep the toes on the floor, the balls of the feet on the floor, and you're driving that movement into the big toe joints. You're not lifting the big toe joints up, which you might notice might want to happen. 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. So I'm going to come to the wall now, and we're going to do 2 really, really good ankle exercises, but expect foot cramp, ankle cramp, calf cramp, all that jazz when you are doing this properly. So we're going to start off with abductions and adductions with our feet close. So for this exercise, if you're accustomed to wall frog, it's a little bit like you're starting off in wall frog, but in wall frog, you've got your feet together. For this exercise, we're going to take our feet apart, probably by about 6 inches or so. And as you get yourself set up in the position, firstly, it's really important that your pelvis is actually fully grounded on the floor. If you're too close to the wall, you might notice that your pelvis is slightly tucked under and like lifted away from the floor. So we want that pelvis grounded. And if you're noticing that your head really tilts back here or your shoulders really round forward, that might be where you want to put a couple of those cushions underneath your head. What we're doing here is we're lining up both our heel and the ball of the feet and the toes more or less about where our hip joints are, a little bit narrower perhaps, but I'm keeping my toes above my ankles at all time. So in order to achieve that, I have to point my toes slightly and get a little bit of a contraction in the arch of the foot. So I like to call this banana feet. My feet are rigid, they're pointing, there's a contraction in the arch of the foot, and I'm keeping that big toe joint above the heels. If my toes were relaxed, they would kind of move away from the ankles and we would be disengaging the feet. So I really want those feet active. So we're going to point the toes and hopefully you're going to start feeling lots of muscles wake up. Keeping the feet in this rigid banana position, you are going to really slowly and mindfully draw the soles of your feet onto the wall, bring your knees together, give them a little bit of a squeeze, and then we're going to go in the opposite direction, but I really want you to lead this movement from your feet, not from your knees. So if you lead from your knees, you might bounce and then the kind of feet have lost that connection. I want you to imagine that you're peeling open a book from the feet, pointing them back into that banana shape and making sure that the toes stay above the ankles. So there is no movement up and down or side to side of your feet. They are rolling in and out, but they are staying rigid and active the whole time. It will feel very easy and very like floppy if you're not controlling this from your feet. 2 minutes here, off we go. And you can have your arms out to the side, or you can have your hands behind your head if you like that. But you're just really focusing on the feet here as leading the movement. It's like the legs and the hips are following what the feet are doing. As I'm coming out, I'm really pointing my toes, making sure the balls of the feet stay above the ankles. I'm really trying to get as much work here in the feet as possible. The angle of my feet is not changing. There's no movement of my feet. They are simply rotating onto the outer edge. So they're not moving up and down. They're not moving side to side. And they're staying really active as I move them out. Keep pointing them, and I'm really aiming for cramp through the arches of my feet, as well as much movement as I can tolerate through my legs, but without the foot moving, without my pelvis lifting, without my pelvis moving or rocking forwards and backwards, and without losing my breath or pulling a face as well. And then what we're going to do for our next exercise is the same thing, but we're going to have our knees wide. So this version of the exercise is working us more in external rotation because the feet are close together. It's asking more demand as we come outwards, but the next version that we're going to do is going to be working more internal rotation of the hip because we're going to have our feet wide. So same exercise, but a slightly different demand on the muscles around the hip whilst the feet are doing the same thing. So we're restoring rotation back to the hip as well as restoring function back to the feet and ankles. They're moving their way into supination here as well as plantar flexion. 3, 2, and 1. Okay, so like I said, same thing, but what we're going to do is we're going to slide our feet further apart. This version is much harder to control the angle of your feet. So the principle is the same, but you're going to find it harder because your feet are further apart. So what you're going to do to start with is take your feet a bit wider, and how wide they are is dependent on your ability to touch your knees together like this. So I probably don't want to go any further apart than that because it's a little bit of a struggle to bring my knees together. And actually I might even bring them slightly closer together. So once again, I've got those parallel feet. The toes are not wider than the ankles. My feet are flat on the wall. I'm drawing my knees together whilst keeping my pelvis grounded, feeling that strain on the kind of outside of my hips as they work hard to internally rotate. Found my edge. So the rules apply where I'm opening up my book. The feet, as I roll, they're not moving up and down or side to side, and I'm pointing my banana feet so that the arches of the feet work hard and the balls of the big toe joints stay above the heels. Off we go. So it should feel like really hard work at the feet to keep them in position. Do not get too bogged down by how wide your knees are going here. Focus more on the control of the feet, and you will feel one hell of a lot more going on if you're focusing on your feet, not how much the knees are moving. And if you're getting lots of cramping, know that it's a good thing. You're waking up your feet and your ankles in a new way. Have a break, shake it off, come back to it. But this is definitely an exercise to carry on with, because that cramping is you just waking up dysfunctional muscles, and that is exactly what posture is all about. Relaxing the face, breathing nice and deeply in and out of the nose and into the diaphragm, making sure that you're giving your knees like a little bit of a squeeze as you come together. And what you might be able to do is, as things start to wake up, you might be able to take your feet a little bit further apart from one another. But once again, remember, it's all about that parallel foot alignment. So not letting the toes go wider than the ankles on the wall. And that's where the effort really comes into the banana position of the feet. As long as you're feeling a lot of stuff around the feet, you're doing this well. But notice how slowly I'm going, and notice how much I'm pointing my toes as everything starts opening up. There's no side to side or up and down movement through the feet as I do this. 10 seconds left here. We've got a little bit of a torturous one next, so I'm sorry. Expect lots of shin burn on the next exercise. 3, 2, and 1. Okay, I'm going to go a little bit closer. We're going to do static wall. But how close you go to the wall and static wall is dependent on your mobility, really. So don't try and be too competitive and go too close to the wall, because just like in that last exercise, we want the pelvis grounded to the floor. So if you go too close to the wall, you might notice that your pelvis kind of tucks up and the tailbone lifts up off the floor. We don't want that. Once again, if you're noticing your head tilts backwards or your shoulders are really rounded forwards, you can have a couple of cushions underneath your lower back. We're all going to put a little bit of a bend in our knees just to make sure we're not hyperextending our knees to compensate. We're going to pull the tops of our feet back towards us. As we pull the tops of our feet back towards us, just make sure that you're not just pulling your toes back towards you. So some people will have their feet pointing away, but they'll have their toes pulling back. We are trying to close up the angle at the front of the ankle like this. We want your shins to be on fire. Keep that soft bend in the knee and really focus on getting a burn happening through your shins. And we're going to start from here, off we go. 5 minutes, but you might need to take a couple of breaks. So I've got my toes, my ankles, my knees and my hips in alignment with one another. And for lots of you, when you do this one, you're going to notice that your knees want to do something different to your feet. And if that's the case, I want you to focus on the alignment of your feet and don't worry about your knees. So get the center of your second and your third toes and the center of your ankles lined up with the hip joints. If that means your knees twist in or your knees twist out, don't worry about that. Just don't worry about what the knees are doing. Focus on the feet and their alignment with the hip. Because what will happen is, as this shin wakes up more, it's going to start changing that torsion that you've got going on through your legs, and it will reposition the kneecap. So I'm keeping that soft bend at the knee, and next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use my brain to squeeze my quads, my front thigh muscles, and I'm really feeling how I'm waking up these guys and I'm waking up the fronts of my shins. So I'm waking up the entire front chain of muscles through my legs. And it is only when you have that awareness of what it feels like to have the shins burning and to have the quads burning that I want you to even consider trying to straighten your knees. Because what lots of people will do is knees hyperextend when ankles can't dorsiflex, which is what we're doing, and when hips can't flex. And so many of you are going to buckle backwards in your knees, and then you're going to start pointing those legs away, and you've lost what we're trying to achieve here because you focus too much on straightening your knees. So I actually just recommend having a bend in your knees and really just getting to grips with that sensation through the fronts of your legs. And then you can try and straighten your knees, provided you are still achieving that burning sensation all the way through the fronts of your legs. You can have your hands behind your head here if you like, or you can have your arms out to the side. And the final thing I want you to really think about is the angle of your feet. So many people really struggle with dorsiflexion, which is the range of movement that we're doing here at the ankle. And what you might notice is that your big toe joints are closer towards your body than your fifth toe joints. So if that's happening, your feet are cheating. They are trying to supinate to avoid dorsiflexion. So you're trying to drag the outside edges of your feet down just as much as the inside edges. That will probably be where you notice that your knees twist inwards. And like I said, don't panic about the knees. The knees will start sorting themselves out the more that you do exercises like this, but the more that we are achieving that horrible burn through the fronts of our shins. And it's like what I was saying about the angle of the feet. It's like you could have a tray of champagne on your feet and it's not going to spill anywhere because they're nice and flat. Try and not flex your toes. So my toes really, really, really want to pull backwards because they're trying to compensate. So one of the things that I have to focus on the most is trying to like relax my toes, but pull the top of my shin back, which is a different sensation. Keep breathing, keep the face relaxed. We're 3.5 minutes in here. I'm just going to take a quick little break, wiggle my legs. This may be one that you want to build up to. 5 minutes is hard, but I'm going to bring the feet back. Remember, it's the toes and the ankles in alignment with the hip. Don't worry about the knees. Soft bend in the knees, pulling backwards through the top of your feet, closing up that angle between the foot and the shin, getting that shin on fire, squeezing the quads using the brain, continuing to pull the tops of the feet back towards us. Oh, my legs are on fire. I'm having another break, going into our final minute here. I think this is the worst one, by the way, at least for me. My toes are trying to cheat so much today. My dorsiflexion is not good. I'm going to bend my knees even more for this final minute because I just feel like my toes are cheating too much. So I'm going to bend the knees, and that really helps me focus on my feet and try and relax my toes. And actually I can kind of feel like my toes are like wiggling and releasing slightly as I really get that burn through the front of my shins. This is horrific. But I've got to keep my face relaxed, my belly relaxed, my breathing relaxed in and out of my nose, into the lower rib cage. Oh God, it's so difficult for me to get that contraction in the shin without the toes pulling backwards. Very interesting to have picked up on that today. So because this is feeling so hard for me, I've kind of forgotten about the quads, but I don't mind that too much because this sensation in the shins is more, I think, important than the quads. The quads can come later as the shins have woken up a little bit more. Okay, relax off. The good news is that we are coming out of that. And we're going to come into 2 minutes of cat-cows. So cat-cows, or cats and dogs, as the Egoscue method calls it for some unknown reason. We're coming to our all fours, and everything's in alignment here. So the knees are directly underneath the hips, and the toes and the ankles are in alignment with the knees. So they're not wider, they're not narrower. You're trying to get the tops of your feet down to the floor. So once again, you're pointing your toes into that banana shape to get the arches contracting, really trying to get as much grounding through the front of the shin as possible. This is working your ankle function. So I don't want to see any of this stuff going on. That's lazy ankles. This is hard working ankles. The fingers spread wide, the wrists are underneath the shoulders, and starting from the pelvis, we're going to drop the pelvis towards the ground into extension. You're going to imagine someone's walking through your spine, and you're going to drop into each vertebrae, sinking into your shoulder blades, drawing the shoulder blades back and down behind you, and gently looking up with your head, keeping the tops of the feet on the floor. And then you're going to squeeze your glutes, roll the pelvis in the opposite direction. And once again, you're going to imagine somebody walking through your spine to help you with that kind of connection tucking in the opposite way like that. So we're moving through pelvic and spinal flexion and extension. As you do it, just make sure that you're not shifting your body forwards and backwards. That's compensation. We're moving up and down, not forwards and backwards. 2 minutes here, off we go. So really slowly, sinking into each vertebrae, sinking into the shoulder blades, drawing the shoulder blades together and gently looking up. Tops of the feet stay on the floor, squeezing the glutes, starting from the bottom of the spine, rolling all the way, pushing into the hands, arching the back as much as you can, tucking the pelvis. And we're not moving forwards and backwards, we're moving up and down. The fingers spread wide, the palms stay grounded. Keeping the tops of the feet on the floor, making sure that the toes and the ankles are in alignment with the knees. So you might be bending at your ankles here to make it a bit easier. I want those feet working really hard. I want you trying to give yourself cramp through the arches of your feet and through the calves. Tucking that pelvis under as much as you can. No shifting forwards and backwards in the torso. We're moving up and down. We're moving our spine in flexion, which is the cat that I'm doing here. And we're moving into extension, which is the dog or the cow that I'm doing here. Getting some nice cramp in the front of my hips as I come down into that dog, which is nice. It means my hips are working well. My pelvis is balancing itself off. Nice and slowly, always nice and slowly with these exercises so that we do them properly. Really trying to get as much movement through each centimeter of our spine. So we're trying to make sure that we're not avoiding certain parts of the spine as we move. And that is time. So the next exercise that we're going to do is a really quite a tough one. It's static extension full. So this is where you're going to need your chair again, but it might be that you want to use like a coffee table or an ottoman. This might not be quite enough space for most people. Static extension position is a huge amount of load on the wrists and on the shoulders. If you've got wrist pain and if you've got shoulder pain, you can give this a go, but it's highly likely to aggravate your symptom. So I would recommend instead doing static extension position on elbows or static extension position on the floor. This is going to be very loaded, so you have been warned. We're going to try and do 2 minutes, but you might need to take quite a few breaks in this one. So I'm bringing my knees up to my chair. My knees, my hips, my knees, my ankles and my toes are in alignment with each other. I'm bringing my body forwards like this, and it's very similar to what we've just done in terms of my wrists being underneath my shoulders, but my hips are going to be a little bit further forwards than my knees. This is within reason. I don't want you in like a plank position like this, but I don't want you being too far back because then you're not loading your shoulders. We want the shoulders under load, which means the shoulders have to be above the wrists. And then what we're doing is we're going to tilt our pelvis forwards, keep our elbows straight, sink into our shoulder blades, relax our head, and this is what we're doing. Off we go. So I'm rolling my pelvis forwards to close up the front of the hip. It's the same type of movement that we've literally just done in that dog position. The neck is fully relaxed. The fingers are spread wide. The palms and the fingers are flat to the floor. The elbows are straight. I'm sinking into my shoulder blades, which are touching behind me. And I'm rolling that pelvis forward, keeping my legs like relaxed. We're balancing the pelvis here. We're balancing the spine, so we're removing rotation through the pelvis, rotation through the spine, rotation through the rib cage. We're repositioning the shoulder blades. Relaxing our face, breathing in and out of our nose, sending that breath to the belly and into the lower rib cage. I probably, if I was at home, would not be using this chair because it is indeed a little bit too narrow. We're halfway through, so I'm going to just quickly push back just to give myself a little bit of a break. and then I'm going to come back into it. The first few times you do this, as I said, it's a toughie, so you might not be able to do the whole 2 minutes. That's fine. If your wrists feel sore and overloaded, then what you know is that you have a shoulder dysfunction problem, and probably need to work on the function of your shoulders more to release your wrists, but this exercise just might be a bit too intense for you. So back out, you can do static extension position on elbows instead, which means that you have no weight going through your wrists, but you're focusing on the shoulder function that you need. I keep lifting my head up. Keep your neck relaxed, put that load into the shoulders and into the arms and into the front of the hips. 3, 2, and 1. Oh, I'm always glad when that one's over, that's for sure. Right, I'm going to move my chair to one side and we've got our final 2 exercises here. So we're going to move on to cross crawling, which is a coordination exercise really, and you can have a cushion here underneath your head if that suits you better to have that. So for cross crawling, it's an opposite arm, opposite leg movement. We're starting off in a supine position. Our toes, our ankles, our knees and our hips are in alignment. We're flexing our feet back towards us like we did in that static wall position. And we're keeping our feet in this dorsiflexion throughout. So there's no pointing of the toes and there's no laziness through the toes. What we are going to do is lift our left leg and our right arm at the same time, and we take them backwards like this. So as I move my leg, I'm trying to keep the toe, the ankle, the knee and the hip in alignment, and I'm trying to keep my shin parallel to the floor. So I don't want the leg lifting up like this, nor do I want the leg drooping down. The arm moves behind me and I'm once again trying to keep the hand, the wrist, the elbow and the shoulder in alignment on that right hand side. And then they move down simultaneously and then I swap sides like this. Okay, so notice how the foot stays flexed and how the shin stays parallel to the floor. The movement is like that. 2 minutes here, off we go. Keep breathing. Relax your head. No, don't relax your head. Well, you can relax your head. Relax your face. Relax your belly. And you're really trying to think about keeping both your legs and your arms in a straight line with the hip joint and the shoulder joint, respectively. We're going nice and slowly. My fingers are spreading wide. I'm stretching off the palms of my hands as I do this. There's no rotation here through my pelvis, so both sides of my pelvis stay grounded on the floor. The back of my ribs stays grounded on the floor. I'm trying to keep the back of my neck long, so it's kind of like I'm tucking my chin in and giving myself a little bit of a double chin. And what we're working here is the function of our hips and our pelvis. So our hips are moving through flexion and extension. Because we're working the feet in dorsiflexion as well, we're also working those ankles. We're opening up the shoulders into flexion. So this is a really good exercise for reducing rotation through the body. We're kind of keeping ourselves in this like straight plane of movement, asking the hips and the shoulders to work in a straight line. And this can be really good for reducing rotation through the pelvis and the spine and the rib cage. Keep breathing nice and slowly. Got just over 20 seconds left here. Remembering that the feet stay flexed throughout. Really focus on the feet. And you're trying to keep toes, ankles, knees and hips in alignment with one another. Keeping that shin parallel to the floor as it lifts up. And you're trying to get as much movement as you can here. Not move quickly. So none of our posture exercises are ever about speed. It is about trying to get as much movement as possible, which is different. Okay, that is time. And our final exercise here, we are finishing with our supine foot circles and points and flexes. So familiar territory for lots of you, I'm sure. Staying in this position, once again, you can have a cushion or two underneath your head if you want to. I'm going to start with my left foot. I recommend if you're doing this again that you mix up which foot you start with, just because it can make a difference as to how it feels in your body. Your right leg is going to stay in that dorsiflexed position. So for my right leg, I've got toe, ankle, knee and hip in alignment. The foot pulls backwards and I'm not lifting my Achilles heel off the floor. If I'm lifting my Achilles heel off the floor, I'm hyperextending the knee. So the Achilles heel has to be on the floor, even if that means that there's a little bit of the bend in the knee. Don't let the knee cheat. I'm putting my hands underneath my left thigh, and the position is very similar to what we were just doing. So the foot isn't dropping, the foot isn't lifting, the hip isn't coming out, the hip isn't coming in. All in alignment, the shin stays parallel to the floor. We are going to do a minute, really, really slowly, of turning our left foot outwards first. We're trying to keep we're trying to keep the knee still, we're trying to keep the shin still, and then the ankle and the foot pivot around it. Off we go here. So we're really relaxing in the upper body. If you have dysfunctional feet that are very stiff, you might really notice that you're holding your breath, that you're pulling faces, and that you're kind of bracing with your upper body. And we are really trying to get your upper body relaxing as much as possible so that we can send the demand into the feet. Slow the movement down by half of what you're wanting to do, and then slow the movement down again. Most people here will go super fast to use momentum rather than muscles. You're really keeping your knees still. You're really keeping your shin still. And we are trying to get the toes involved in this movement as well. So the foot moves around and away, but I want you to be like flexing and pointing your toes. So you're really trying to get the arches of the feet cramping and the tops of the feet working as the feet flex towards you, the toes flex towards you. 3, 2, 1, same foot, different direction. So we're doing the same movement, but we're just rotating it in the other way. Keeping that other foot active without the Achilles heel lifting. So that hip is stretching into extension whilst that foot is working its way into dorsiflexion. We're not letting our left knee drift in and out. We're keeping the back of the neck long, keeping the rib cage grounded. We are keeping breathing. The shin on that left-hand side stays as still as possible and parallel to the floor so that we are waking up the function of our feet and our ankles, and we're not kind of cheating with the lower leg and the knee. So many people are very stiff in their feet, and what they end up doing subconsciously as they move is they torque around that lower leg, and that can be where we get a lot of knee pain and problems from. It's overload in the lower leg because the feet aren't doing their job. 3, 2, 1. Final minute here on this side. We are pointing and flexing. Pointing into plantar flexion, flexing into dorsiflexion. The shin stays still, so this can be one where people really try and move the shin up and down to cheat. What you're trying to do is draw that foot forwards and backwards, not lift your lower leg up and down. Pointing the toes so hard you get cramp, flexing the feet so hard you can feel that shin burn, relaxing your face, keeping breathing in and out of the nose into the lower ribs, relaxing the upper body, keeping that right foot locked on into dorsiflexion, feeling that shin work, the ankle doesn't lift off the floor on that right hand side. We're nearly there. You've got just over 10 seconds on this leg. We're doing the same thing on the other leg, and then we are done. 3, 2, and 1. Amazing work. So swapping over, getting that left leg set up, toes, ankles, knees and hips in alignment, flexing the left foot back towards you because it's been working hard. It's going to feel harder to do that. Not lifting the Achilles heel up. A minute outward circles first on this right foot. Off we go. So my right foot is parallel to the floor. Sorry, my right shin is parallel to the floor. My ankle, my knee and my hip on the right hand side are in alignment. I'm just trying really hard to keep my shin still. So I definitely want to move my shin more on this right foot. I feel how I want to take the whole lower leg in a circle. And I actually find it really helpful on this one to kind of look at my right shin. It helps me to notice whether or not I'm moving it, and I slow my movement down a bit and try and move a little bit less just to reduce the amount of twisting that is trying to happen through that right shin. Pointing the toes as I circle them away, flexing them as the foot comes back towards me. 3, 2, 1. Swapping directions here. I really want to move that foot. So what this is teaching me is that I have dysfunction in my right foot and my right lower leg is trying to help out and cheat. But whilst it's doing that, I'm never going to switch on that function properly on that right foot. So I've really got to try and nail that rigidity through the lower leg. My left foot is still flexing back towards me, keeping that burn in the shin. Breathing and relaxing, keeping the back of the neck long. Ten seconds left here. Final minute. Point and flex going on in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Off we go. So go for glory. Nice and slowly. Remember, your body's going to try and make you do this fast to make it easier for you. The slower you go, the harder it will be because you're working your muscles, you're not using momentum. The ankle's not lifting up and down here. The shin stays still. It's the foot that's moving forwards and backwards. We're trying to create as much arch and kind of calf cramp as we can, as well as much shin burn as we can. Sorry, I'm finding it hard and then losing my ability to speak at the same time. Last 20 seconds and then it's all over. I can really feel how my upper body like unwinds and relaxes as I'm waking up this right foot, which is really nice. 3, 2, and 1. Oh! The burn is real. So that was the end of our ankle menu from the Pain Free by Pete Egoscue book. Hope you're feeling the burn. I hope you enjoyed it and I'll see you again soon.